I hadn't been on that street in 20 years, and the second my boots hit the curb, I regretted it. The houses were bigger than I remembered, sharper, colder, like they'd been scrubbed clean of anything human. My name's Carly Monroe. I'm 42 years old. I just flew in from Anchorage, Alaska. Spent the last 2 decades jumping out of helicopters to fight wildfires. But now I was standing in front of my parents' front door in Westport, Connecticut, holding a duffel bag that smelled like pine smoke and wildflower soap. I'd brought hand-carved trinkets from a guy I knew in Fairbanks. Thought my niece or nephew might like them. Thought maybe my mom would appreciate the soap. Thought wrong. The door opened after one ring. Kayla, my sister. Blonde bob, white sweater, not a hair out of place. "Wow," she said. No hug, just wide eyes and a step back. "You're actually here." "Good to see you too," I said, walking past her before she could change her mind. The house looked like it had never been lived in. Spotless, polished floors, glass tabletops, white couches with no creases. There wasn't a single thing out of place. I didn't even see a single toy or kid's shoe, just magazines and a bowl of lemons that looked fake. My mom came in from the kitchen holding a linen towel. She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. "We didn't know you were coming. Figured it was time." I set the bag down gently, even though I wanted to toss it right through the drywall. My dad walked in last, still wearing one of his golf sweaters. He glanced at my uniform, then at the worn-out hiking boots I hadn't changed since the airport. "Did you bring gear into the house?" he asked. "Number just soap, and a couple things from Alaska." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "Alaska? That's where I've been." No one asked for details. "No. How was it? No. We missed you?" My hands clenched around the carved moose I'd picked out for my nephew. I looked around the room, trying to find something familiar. "Hey, where's my Jeep?" The old red Cherokee I spent 3 summers rebuilding with my dad, back before everything got cold. My father waved his hand like he was brushing off a fly. "That junk?" "We sold it. It was just sitting there taking up space." I blinked. "You what?" "Relax. It barely ran." "You could have told me." "You left it for 20 years, and you didn't think to ask before selling it?" Kayla opened her mouth like she might say something, but then didn't. My mom turned toward the kitchen like it was suddenly time to check on something that didn't exist. I stared at all 3 of them. "Okay," I said. Then I turned and walked out of the room before I said something that would blow the whole damn house down. I walked back in a few minutes later. No one noticed. They were in the living room, murmuring about local construction and some dumb town hall zoning issue. I headed toward the hallway, looking for a glass of water, or maybe just an excuse to breathe. That's when I saw them. The wall of frames, 20, maybe 30 pictures, all staged and perfectly aligned. Kayla in Italy with a gelato, Kayla at her wedding in Napa, Kayla holding both her kids on a beach in the Hamptons, my parents at the symphony, at fundraisers, with people I didn't recognize. There wasn't a single picture of me, not one. I scanned every shelf, every mantle. I even crouched to check the bottom rows, like maybe I'd been downgraded to dog level. Nothing. I don't know why I opened the pantry. Maybe I was hoping there was a bottle of whiskey behind the flour. Instead, behind a stacked row of spice jars and a half-empty protein tub, I found it. One photo. Me in ranger gear, helmet on, dirt on my face, grinning like I'd just hauled a family out of a flood zone. It was curled at the edges and dusty. I pulled it out and stared at it for a second. "You still drink tea?" Kayla's voice behind me made me flinch. She held up a fancy tin. "Mom hoards this brand. It's from Vienna?" I dropped the photo back where I found it and shut the pantry door. "Sure." She poured water into the kettle like we were friends. "I went back last spring. Did a whole series on pastry shops in Budapest. That post blew up? 72,000 hits in one day." I gave her a tight smile. "Sounds exhausting." She shrugged. "It pays the bills." My mom strolled in, wiping her hands. "Did you hear about Ben's son? He just landed a job at Morgan Stanley. Full salary, bonus potential, only 25. I raised an eyebrow. "That's great. I was in Northern California last spring. Mendocino fires. We ran rescue on the edge of an evacuation zone, burned half the forest. Took us weeks to clear. One guy fell into a ravine. I pulled him out with a torn shoulder." My mom tilted her head, like I'd just told her a dream she didn't quite follow. "That's intense." My dad wandered in right on cue, cradling a tumbler of scotch. "That's what happens when you pick manual labor over real opportunity." I stared at him. "Manual labor? Well, it's not exactly strategic planning. No, it's just saving lives in 100-degree heat while everything's on fire. But hey, maybe Morgan Stanley's got a better air conditioning system? Kayla set the tea tray down with a soft clink. You know, you helped me that year Dave got laid off. Paid our mortgage that month. I never forgot that. But no one said thank you. My mom just reached for a coaster. My dad sipped his drink. The room buzzed with silence. I looked down at my boots. Same ones I wore when we cut line in Colorado, dragging hoses through ash up to our knees. I'd made it back here, covered in smoke and 20 years of silence, only to realize I didn't exist in this house. I stood up. Where are you going? Kayla asked. Out. You just got here. I didn't answer. I walked straight to the front door, picked up my bag, and stepped outside. 10 minutes later, I booked a motel room off Route 1. Didn't even bother checking reviews. I just wanted four walls that didn't make me feel like a damn ghost. The lodge was tucked behind a tree line, a mile off the main road. Gravel crunched under my boots as I walked toward the front desk. A dented Smoky Bear sign hung above the entrance. No valet, no manicured lawn, no lemon bowl. Perfect. Inside, it smelled like old coffee and pine cleaner. The woman at the desk barely looked up as I handed over my ID. You with the agency? Used to be? She gave me a key card, pointed down a hallway. Room 6. Mess room's still open. I dropped my gear on the creaky twin bed and didn't even bother unpacking. The silence felt good. Solid. I peeled off my boots, washed my face, and wandered down to the mess room just to feel human again. A few guys sat at a corner table trading stories. Gear bags lined the wall. I grabbed a tray and ladled out chili from the pot, found a seat near the window. The heat from the food hit my gut like a rock, in a good way. Carly, a voice from behind. I turned and almost didn't recognize him without soot on his face. Will Carter, former team lead from a Utah Fire 5 years back. Tall, same buzzed haircut, deep scar across his forearm from a collapsed tower. I stood. You've gotta be kidding. He pulled me into a bear hug before I could dodge it. What the hell are you doing in Connecticut? Family stuff. You? Training rotation. Helping the Greenhorns prep for Oregon. We sat down, catching up between bites. He talked about his 2 kids, how his wife still kept their go bags by the door like they'd deploy again any minute. I told him about Alaska, Kodiak, the wrecked gear shed we rebuilt with bear wire and cussing. Then he leaned back and looked at me hard. You know your name's been coming up lately, I frowned. For what? Leadership awards, policy recognition. A couple folks at Interior mentioned you in a task force brief. You helped write the evac protocols in Montana, right? I shrugged. We tweaked them after 3 guys nearly died on a ridge. That's not writing. Will raised his eyebrows. It's the reason those 3 guys didn't die. That's what matters. I shook my head. Nah, they give medals to folks in suits. I'm just the one yelling at rookies to tie their harness right. He leaned in. Carly, you've led teams through hell. You held the line in Oregon when half the base camp bailed. That's not nothing. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just looked down at my empty bowl and nodded. Later that night, back in the room, I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling fan. My phone buzzed once, then again, then nothing. I pulled it from my duffel. 2 encrypted emails, both flagged with a red exclamation. Sender, Department of the Interior. I sat up. The subject line was short. Notice of National Commendation Selection. Confidential until release. I clicked it. My eyes scanned fast. I couldn't breathe. Selected recipient. Federal recognition. Executive-level honor for exceptional leadership in wildland response. They said my name. They said my name. Not the team. Not the department. Me. I read it again. There was a line about media embargoes and a ceremony in D.C. I skipped over it. Didn't care. I closed the laptop and just sat there in the dark, palms sweating. A knock came at the wall. Will's way of saying goodnight. I knocked back once, short and solid. Then I laid down, hands behind my head, and stared at the ceiling again. It was the first time in years I felt like maybe, just maybe, someone had actually seen me. The next morning, I sat on the edge of the bed with the phone in my hands, staring at the words again like they might vanish. Recipient of the National Wildland Leadership Commendation, sole awardee. Details under embargo. Until Monday's press release, I read it 3 times, blinking like an idiot. Part of me didn't believe it. The other part, the one that still remembered the smell of scorched pine and the sound of someone screaming over a busted radio. That part knew exactly why they chose me. I'd pulled a kid out of a rock slide in Oregon, built a whole evac strategy in Montana when half the maps were wrong, caught heat from DC for breaking rank, then got a quiet email 2 weeks later that said, "Good call." But now they wanted to put me on a stage. I locked the screen and dropped the phone in my lap. My eyes drifted to my duffel bag, half zipped in the corner. That damn carved moose was still sitting in the side pocket. And I couldn't stop thinking about the Jeep. It was a rust bucket, sure, but it was mine. I learned to change oil in that thing, rebuilt the transmission with my dad when I was 16. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, he'd sold it to help Kayla with her business. Would have made sense. Sacrifice the ghost to fund the golden child. The next day, I drove back to the house. I didn't call. I just walked in while they were all in the den, glued to the TV like nothing existed outside their zip code. HGTV was playing, some backyard redesign with champagne fountains and concrete fire pits. Kayla sat cross-legged on the couch, laptop in her lap, scrolling through what looked like wedding venues. My mom was talking about garden party themes like it was a job title. My dad, silent, eyes on the screen. I stood by the doorway. No one looked up. Then the channel cut to commercial. CNN. A teaser aired with low dramatic music and a flashing banner. Next week, one of America's unsung heroes of wildland fire rescue will be honored live in Washington, D.C., in a rare national recognition ceremony. Stock footage played, helicopters, flames, ash clouds. The voiceover continued. This firefighter, a woman with over 2 decades of experience, led dozens of evacuations and helped rewrite federal rescue protocol. The room stayed silent. They didn't say my name, not yet. Just images, just hints. But it was enough. Still, no one said a word. I waited 5 seconds, then 10. Then Kayla looked up, blinked, and said, "That's crazy. I bet that's the one you mentioned, Mom." "The girl from Colorado?" My mom tilted her head. "Might be. It's hard to keep track of all those fires." My hands curled into fists in my coat pockets. I opened my mouth, closed it again. I didn't say a word. I just walked out. That night, I stood near the outer fence of the local fire base. Quiet drills were running. New recruits lined up, practicing radio calls and team movement. I stayed behind the tree line, just watching. I felt more connected to those rookies than anyone inside that damn mansion. Another buzz hit my phone. Message. Final confirmation. Presidential commendation. You are the sole recipient. Ceremony will be nationally broadcast. Media brief to follow Monday. I stared at the screen. Sole recipient. No team, no group nod. Just my name. I should have felt pride. But what I felt instead was colder, sharper. Not "I finally made it." More like, "Now let's see them ignore this." I took a deep breath, shoved my phone into my pocket, and turned toward the lodge. No applause, no congratulations. Just the sound of drills and static radio clicks echoing in the distance. And the quiet truth that they couldn't look past me much longer. The lodge felt different the next morning. Not quieter, louder, heavier, like the air had weight to it. A tent had gone up outside overnight, packed with reporters, cables, microphones, folding chairs, and wide-eyed interns with clipboards. I could hear generators humming before I even unlatched my door. Will stood outside, 2 coffees in hand. He handed one to me without saying anything. I took a sip. "You always this calm before something big?" He laughed. "Nope, I just hide it better." Inside, I laid my uniform on the bed. I hadn't worn it since DC training over a decade ago. It was crisp, deep navy, with the agency patch stitched on the left sleeve and my nameplate just above the chest pocket. Not flashy, just sharp. Will watched me smooth out the sleeves. "You ever think it'd come to this?" "No," I said. "I figured I'd go down in a fire somewhere no one could pronounce with a busted radio and a shovel in my hand." He smirked. "Instead, you're meeting the president. Guess weirder things have happened." He left me alone to change. My hands shook a little as I buttoned the collar. I hated that. Not nerves. Just energy with nowhere to go. I'd rather be loading a truck than standing still, but this was happening. When I stepped outside, cameras swung toward me. A row of reporters clicked into motion. Someone barked a sound check into a headset. Flashbulbs popped. I kept walking. Didn't stop. Didn't wave. At the edge of the tent, a White House rep met me with a tight smile and a clipboard. "You'll stand to the left of the stage until the introduction. When your name is called, step forward, shake hands, then remain on stage for the photo line. I nodded. She didn't ask if I was nervous. The crowd settled. The cameras stopped flashing. The president took the podium. He looked older in person, tired around the eyes, but steady. He didn't read from a script. There are people in this country who never ask for attention. They work behind fire lines, in smoke, in storms, and in silence. Today, we honor one of them. I stared straight ahead. My boots were rooted in place. She led emergency evacuations during the Montana Ridge Blaze. She trained wildfire rescue teams across 5 states. She saved lives. She changed federal protocol, and most of you have never heard her name. A pause. But we've heard it now, and we won't forget it again. Then he said it, my full name. Clear, slow, loud enough to echo off the trees. Carly Monroe. I stepped forward. I took his hand. It was warm, firm, steady. My uniform felt too tight across the shoulders, but I didn't flinch. Cameras snapped like machine guns. I didn't blink. Back home, I knew the TV was on. The ceremony aired live, every local station, every national outlet. They saw it. They had to. And I pictured them on that couch, same white sofa, same untouched room. My mom with a wine glass trembling in her fingers. My dad pretending not to react. Kayla staring like the signal had cut out. For the first time in years, I heard her voice in my head, saying it. Carly. Like it meant something now. I stayed on stage through the applause, through the photo ops, through the string of handshakes from half a dozen strangers in polished shoes. I didn't smile wide, just enough. Afterward, the president leaned in close. I've read what you did out there. I'm glad they finally gave you a mic. I nodded. Took 'em long enough. He grinned and walked off. I turned toward the cameras one last time, held my chin up, looked right into the lens like I'd been waiting my whole damn life for it. And for the first time, it wasn't about being better than them. It was about being seen. By the time I got back to the lodge, my phone was buzzing nonstop. 4 missed calls, then 8, then 12, all from my dad. I tossed the key on the dresser, dropped onto the bed, and stared at the screen. Voicemail icons lined up like dominoes. The last one came in less than 5 minutes ago. Then the text from my mom hit. Just a blurry photo. Me at 6 years old in a pink jacket, holding a pine cone, smiling with 2 front teeth missing. No words. No, I'm proud of you. Just that. Next came the emails, old names I hadn't heard in years. Subject, you did it. From Lena Travers, a smoke jumper I trained with back in Arizona. I always knew you had it in you. We all did. You just never needed the spotlight. I didn't answer. Another call came in. I let it ring out. Then the voicemail from Will landed. I hit play. His voice came through quiet, steady. You earned this, Carly. All of it. Let him talk now. I held the phone in both hands and stared at the wall. The next message came from Kayla, longer than the others. She wrote like she was trying to explain something that couldn't be explained in one paragraph. I saw the broadcast. I don't know what to say. I've been thinking a lot about everything. I was wrong. You mattered the whole time. I want to talk. Just talk. When you're ready. I let that one sit there. Didn't delete it. Didn't reply either. A knock sounded on my door. I didn't answer. Whoever it was walked away after a few seconds. Later that night, I opened my laptop to check for travel confirmations. The first email at the top of my inbox had a news outlet's logo in the corner. Subject, profile request. Woman ignored by family becomes a national hero. My stomach clenched. I clicked it open. Some junior producer at a cable network wanted to do a full segment. They wanted my story, the hidden daughter angle, footage of my speech, photos of the family wall with no pictures of me, a soft piano voiceover probably. They wanted drama. They wanted the pain with a spotlight on it. I didn't even finish reading. I hit delete. I closed the laptop. My throat felt dry. I whispered. They had their chance. That was it. No press tour, no revenge story, no front-page healing arc where everybody hugs at the end. Just the truth. I stood, walked to the window, and cracked it open. The air smelled like sap and burnt ash. Familiar. The kind of air that didn't lie to you. My phone buzzed again on the bed, lighting up with another call from my dad. I let it ring. Out loud, to no one, I said, "You're too late." I didn't say it with hate. I said it like someone who'd finally stopped waiting. The next morning, I got a text. I'm outside the base, at the diner near the East Gate. Just 15 minutes? Kayla. I didn't answer. I just stood at the window for a minute, staring at the pine trees swaying in the wind. Then I grabbed my jacket and walked out. The diner was old school. Cracked booths, dull chrome trim, coffee so strong it could strip paint. I spotted her through the front glass. No makeup, hair pulled back. Hoodie, jeans, no jewelry. It was the first time I'd seen her without her armor. I walked in. She looked up, lips pressed tight, then motioned to the booth across from her. I sat, arms crossed, jaw locked. She didn't start with a hello. "I didn't come to fix it," she said. "I know I can't." I said nothing. I've been thinking a lot, since the ceremony, before that even. She picked at her thumbnail. "You were always the strong one. I just played the game." "You played it well," I said. She nodded. "Yeah, they handed me the rule book and told me to smile, so I did. They handed me silence," I said. "I sent letters. I called. I flew back for Uncle Drew's funeral, and you all acted like I didn't belong." "I remember," she said, her voice low. "I don't know why we treated you like a guest. It was like, if we didn't acknowledge it, we didn't have to feel bad. That's how cowards live." She blinked at that but didn't argue, just nodded. "I was jealous. That's the truth. You left, you made something real, and they still gave me all the credit like showing up to brunch was a damn achievement. You could have picked up the phone." I didn't know how to not make it worse. I leaned forward. "You didn't have to fix anything, Kayla. You just had to try." She swallowed hard. "I know, I didn't, and I hate that." Silence hung for a second. Plates clattered in the kitchen. A server dropped off 2 waters we hadn't asked for. "I just wanted to tell you," she said finally. "I see you now, fully, and I'm sorry I didn't earlier." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a photo. Worn at the edges, slightly creased. Us as kids, sitting in the back of the Jeep, popsicles in hand, faces sticky, laughing at something long gone. I slid it across the table. She looked at it and blinked fast. "Why are you giving me this?" she asked. "Because that's the last time we were real. Maybe you'll figure out what changed." She looked up at me, eyes glassy. I stood. She didn't stop me. I walked out of that diner feeling steady, not satisfied, not healed, just steady, and that was enough. I was halfway through a morning briefing with the base captain when someone knocked twice on the trailer door. "Monroe, there's a guy waiting at the gate," the junior on watch said. Older. Said he's your father. I felt my stomach drop, sharp and low. "How long's he been there?" "Little over an hour. Didn't ask for coffee, just stood there." I didn't rush. I finished the briefing, packed my notes, and walked out slow. There he was, leaning against the chain-link fence near the entrance, dressed like he was going golfing. Pressed khakis, windbreaker, loafers that had no business touching gravel. He straightened when he saw me coming. "Carly!" I didn't answer, just crossed my arms and stopped 5 feet from him. I didn't make it easier. "You look strong," he said, like that was a compliment. I raised one eyebrow. "That why you're here?" He shifted. I, watched the ceremony. It was impressive. You were impressive." I stared at him. He cleared his throat. "I've been thinking a lot about you, about everything. You always took the hard road. I took a road. You just never followed." He looked down at his shoes. "I guess I didn't know how to handle it. You were always so sure. You didn't need anything from us." "That's a lie people tell themselves when they don't want to care." His mouth opened, then shut. "You sold my Jeep." He looked up. "It was rusted through. The tires were—" "You could have asked. You didn't. You just got rid of it." His hands tightened. "I thought maybe Kayla—" I stepped closer. "You sold my Jeep. You deleted every photo of me from that house. And you let everyone in that family treat me like I was never born." His face twisted, but he didn't deny it. "I didn't know how to fix it," he said finally. "And I was scared you wouldn't come back. That you'd stay out there forever and we'd never get another shot." "I didn't stay away," I snapped. "I wrote, I called, I showed up. And every time, you treated me like a problem you forgot to lock in the basement." He looked genuinely shaken. I saw his shoulders drop for the first time in years. "Can we try again?" he asked. I let the words hang there. The wind moved through the trees behind us. A few new recruits walked past on the far side of the fence, not paying attention. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm not coming from that place anymore," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked back toward the base. He didn't follow. I didn't go home after the base. I went straight to DC. 3 weeks later, they pinned the badge on my uniform and handed me a title I never thought I'd carry: Chief of Strategy for Emergency Forest Operations. First woman in the role, first one without a college degree from somewhere fancy, first one who smelled like charred bark instead of cologne. I didn't smile. I just nodded and said, "Let's get to work." The national summit landed 2 months after the promotion. Ballroom filled with shiny suits, bureaucrats, and every kind of agency patch imaginable. Cameras, again. A banner behind the podium stretched wall to wall in bold block letters. Keynote speaker, Carly Monroe, Chief Strategy Officer. My name, no family name, no daughter of, no +1, just mine. I stood in front of them, palms flat on the podium, and looked out over rows of men and women who'd never heard me speak unless it was to order a bucket drop or call for evac. They leaned in. "My name is Carly Monroe," I said. "I've been a firefighter for over 20 years. I've slept in mud, in ash, in trucks held together with duct tape and sheer will. I've pulled bodies out of rivers. I've handed children over to helicopters and told them they were safe when I wasn't even sure I believed it." The room was dead quiet. "I wasn't forgotten," I said. "I was ignored. There's a difference. And now, you see me? So, make it count." When I stepped down, the applause hit like thunder. I didn't soak it in. I let it pass right through me. Backstage, a young woman in a yellow crew shirt approached. Couldn't have been older than 23. Nervous, chewing the edge of her lip. "Chief Monroe?" she asked. I just wanted to say you're the reason I joined. I didn't think people like me, could do this." I looked her up and down. Her boots were worn in, her shoulders squared. "You already are doing it," I said. She nodded. "Any advice?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, warped compass, burned on one edge, casing cracked, but still working. I'd carried it since my first fire, when my captain told me, "If you lose your bearings, look for flame and run toward it, not away." I pressed it into her hand. "Find your direction, then fight like hell to keep it." She looked stunned. "Are you sure? I don't carry things I don't need anymore." Later that week, I flew back west. Not to Alaska, not to Connecticut, Idaho, quiet woods. A place that felt like it hadn't asked anything from me yet. On a gray afternoon, I parked outside a small chapel I hadn't seen in years. White siding, gravel lot, still standing. I walked inside. It was empty except for a priest lighting candles near the front. He turned when he heard the door. His eyes narrowed, then softened. "You always came in quiet," he said. "Usually after something bad, didn't speak, just sat with it." I nodded. "You carried more than you let on." I stepped forward, boots echoing on the wood floor. "Not anymore," I whispered. He gave a slow nod, said nothing else. I walked to the pew where I used to sit, didn't kneel, just sat, arms on my knees, eyes up at the cross hanging above the altar. I didn't pray. I didn't ask for anything. I just breathed. No smoke in the air, no sirens, no silence screaming at me to fix what other people broke. Just me. And that was finally enough. The cabin sat just above a reservoir that barely showed up on most maps. Northern Idaho. Quiet, still mine. Wood stove in the corner. Old Ranger map tacked above the desk. A battered typewriter I found at a flea market in town. I liked the noise it made when the keys hit. Solid, final, no backspace. I wrote letters, real ones. One to Will. Thanked him for always showing up without needing to be asked. One to the recruit. Her name was Reese. I told her the compass always worked, but her gut was louder. And one to my first captain, who taught me what to do when the wind changed directions mid-burn. I sealed each one, stamped them, left them on the counter by the door. No return address. Then I opened the drawer. The letter from my father was still there, postmarked 2 weeks ago, neatly folded. Heavy envelope like he thought thick paper would make it more sincere. I never opened it. I took it out back, lit a match, and held it to the corner. It caught fast. I didn't cry. I didn't say anything. I just watched the flame until it burned itself out in the tin. Can I kept near the porch for garbage. No ceremony, no big goodbye. Just release. Back inside, I opened the email Reese sent, a photo from her graduation. She stood straight, uniform pressed, the burned compass clipped to her belt. She looked ready. I smiled, not wide, just enough. Then I opened the closet. My dress uniform hung by itself. No dust, no hanger creases. I pulled it on one last time and stepped in front of the mirror. My hair had streaks of gray now. My eyes were sharper than they'd ever been. I didn't look like a girl trying to prove herself anymore. I looked like someone who already had. I squared my shoulders, let out a breath, and said it out loud. I see you, Carly Monroe. And this time, I meant it.